And we all say, Amen. Please, let's be seated. Your Excellency, the Governor of Lagos State, Mr. Babajide Olushola Sanwo-Olu, we welcome you. Let me welcome the Governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria, Mr. Goodwill MFLSUN. There are all the deputy governors are here. I'd like to welcome the Deputy Governor Operations, Mr. Folashodun Adebisi Shonubi, the Deputy Governor Economic Policy, Mr. Kingsley Obiora, the Deputy Governor Financial System Stability, Mrs. Aisha N. Ahmed, and the Deputy Governor Corporate Services, Mr. Edward L. Adamu. I'd like to welcome here the Chairman of the bodies of banks, CEOs in Nigeria, and the CEO of Zenith Bank of Nigeria, Mr. Ebenezer Onyeago. I welcome you. Also here, let me welcome the Group CEO of GTCO, Mr. Segun Agbaje. There are several MDs of banks, Fidelity Bank, Lotus Bank, Titan, Zenith. They're all here. Let me welcome all of you, stakeholders in this sector. Welcome to this event. Your Excellency, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, it is with pleasure that I welcome all of you to the second edition of the RT200 Non-Oil Export Summit. I will recall with fondness the exciting conversation during the first edition that held right here in this hall, June 16th, 2022. And you know, it is said in the African parlance that when a blacksmith is hitting at a particular spot, then there must be something special about that spot. And also we know that honey is sweet, but to get it out of the honeycombs means have to be devised to get the bee out of the way.
This is the NTA outside broadcast crew reaching you live from Lagos here at Ecole Halls, where the second edition of the biannual RT200 Summit is taking place. Let me quickly do a refresh of the first edition of the biannual RT200. That's the Bankers Committee and CBN also held here at Ecole Halls. That was in June 16, where the first edition was held. And the RT200 FX program is an initiative of the Bankers Committee aimed at raising $200 billion in non-oil export earning over the next 3 to 5 years. The program is anchored on 5 pillars, namely value-adding export facility, non-oil commodity expansion facility, non-oil FX rebate scheme, dedicated non-oil export terminal, and biannual non-oil export summit. So seated in the hall here, we have the Governor of Lagos State, Babajide Sanwo-Olu. We have the Central Bank Governor, the Minister of Trade and Investments, Otumba Adebayo. We also have bank executives who are here to discuss ways of moving the non-oil exports forward in Nigeria.
So to welcome all of us here this morning, I'd like to invite the Deputy Governor of the Central Bank in charge of the Financial System Stability, Chairperson of the Executive Council of Women in Management, Business and Public Service, has been involved in banking at the top level in the last 20 years, either as banking executive, investment advisor, or retail banking, wealth management, consulting, and financial advisory. Please welcome here Mrs. Aisha Ahmed.
Good morning. Can you hear me? Oh, yeah. Thank you for the warm introduction. I am not the chairperson of Women in Management, Business and Public Service, but it was important to mention that. Your Excellency, the Executive Governor of Lagos State, Mr. Babajide Sanwo-Olu, Your Excellency, the Honorable Minister for Industry, Trade and Investment, Otunbani Adebayo, our Governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria, Mr. Goodwill, very distinguished guests that are here, captains of industry, good morning. I think we need to wake up. We need to wake up a little. Let's wake up. Let's wake up, please. Thank you. So I'm very delighted to actually welcome you to our second edition of the RT200 Non-Oil Export Summit. The summit is one of 5 important pillars of the RT200 program. And it's a platform for us to engage ministries, departments, and agencies, regulators, bankers, exporters, everyone within the export value chain has an opportunity to use this platform to engage on pertinent issues, prospects, challenges, and initiatives towards growing the value of Nigeria's non-oil exports. That is why we are here. As we are all aware, the Nigerian economy has largely depended on crude oil receipts as its main source of foreign exchange. As a result of this overdependence, we witnessed a foreign exchange market that has been very susceptible to external shocks and volatilities. The CBN, in response, has adopted a holistic demand and supply management strategy in its oversight of the industry, trying to focus, particularly in the last few years, on boosting other sources of FX, such as remittances and exports. Accordingly, the bank deployed new measures to attain this objective, and one of those measures is the RT200 Non-Oil Export Program. This program was launched by the Governor of the Central Bank in February of this year, and the aim is to ensure that we increase our earnings from non-oil exports to $200 billion annually in the next 3 to 5 years. To reduce our dependence, the CBN, over-reliance of the CBN on FX, to reduce our exposure to volatile sources of FX for the market, and also to ensure that we support export-oriented companies. So RT200 indeed is just a set of plans, policies, initiatives, and strategies that we want to execute across 5 important anchors. The first is the Value Adding Exports Facility, VEF, the Non-Oil Commodities Expansion Facility, the Non-Oil FX Rebate Scheme, the Dedicated Non-Oil Export Terminal, and the hosting of this biannual Non-Oil Export Summit. We all recall, as was mentioned before, the maiden edition of this summit, which held in this room, June 2022, where several recommendations were made. This second edition obviously builds on the first, and the theme, RT200 Non-Oil Export Program, the journey so far, carefully selected in response to that. So in addition to using this platform to prefer workable solutions to the challenges in this sector, this is meant to be an important problem-solving summit. It has all the different actors in the room and is expected to ensure we leave here with workable solutions to some of the challenges. I think you would agree that boosting non-oil exports is a joint responsibility. And in our conversation, candor, pragmatism, and a spirit of true collaboration will be invaluable as we work out the solutions to our challenges and as we most importantly work out new ideas for boosting our exports. So I'd like to just take all of us, this full room, take advantage of this summit. Let's work together, let's be open, and more importantly, let's have fun. Thank you very much.
Please, another round of applause for the Deputy Governor, FSS of CBN. Thank you so much, Mrs. Ahmed. Indeed, problem solving, that's what we're here to do. Finding solutions to the challenges and, of course, bringing forth new ideas to deal with the issues on exports, non-oil exports at hand. Well, without further ado, I'd like to invite to the stage to give us his goodwill message, the Group Chief Executive Officer of GTCO, Mr. Segun Abaje. Please, a round of applause for him. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning. I could do the cop out and kind of rest on existing protocols, but I think that would be wrong. So I'd like to acknowledge the Executive Governor of Lagos State, the Honorable Minister of Trade and Industry, the Governor of the Central Bank, Deputy Governors, CEOs of banks, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. A goodwill message, I guess I'm trying to wonder what to say, because everything was elegantly said by the Deputy Governor of FSS. However, I would like to congratulate everybody who's been a part of RT 200. You heard the statistic of what was accomplished in the first quarter. There is no I in team, and so that 2.5 billion was really achieved through the collective effort of the central bank, the exporters, the companies, and the banks. Thank you. And I think that it is important that we continue to galvanize the energy and the force in this room. Needless to say, it is impossible for any country to survive on a monoproduct, which is what Nigeria has done over the last couple of years. All of you have seen the volatility in oil. One day is $98, today is 81. During COVID, it was 28. So the urgency of RT 200 cannot be overemphasized. Nigeria must diversify its earnings base. We must, and every time we think of non-oil exports, we should stop thinking of only commodities, which is why we have manufacturers in this room. We must export finished goods. We must export commodities. So again, I'm not going to take too much time because I know the governor comes up after me. So thank you so much for attending. Thank you for the wonderful work in the first 3 quarters of this year. And hopefully in the next 2-3 years, we'll be able to come up here and say we now do $200 billion a year in non-oil export. Enjoy the rest of the day.
Thank you very much, Mr. Segun Abaje. Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, our next speaker
Just before
has put in
the
over 20
GTMD came to the podium to speak, we had the Deputy Governor, Financial System Stability of the Central Bank of Nigeria, Ahmed, where she came to speak on the importance of RT 200. She said we need to focus on strategies that can help us earn more stable and sustainable inflows of foreign exchange. We need to follow the best practices and other countries to ensure we protect ourselves. Also, Shogun Agbaje, the GTMD, spoke extensively on the essence to diversify our exports, to diversify our earnings in order to grow the export commodity base of the country.
Well, thank you very much. Your Excellency, the Executive Governor of Lagos State, Mr. Sanwo-Olu, our Honorable Minister of Industry, Trade and Investment, Otunba Niyi Adebayo, our very distinguished Deputy Governors and Directors of Central Bank of Nigeria here present, bank CEOs here present. I see a couple of you here, but please permit me to especially recognize Herbert is not here. I believe he should be on his way here. I want to recognize Shogun Agbaje and also Ebenezer Onyago. Please, they deserve a round of applause. The reason I say this is because not that other bank MDs or CEOs or group CEOs are not important, but I found these three gentlemen as very, very great supporters in what we are doing. And I would reveal a secret to you all this morning. It will be it's a secret being revealed, even though that gathering has since stopped. For over 4 to 5 years, every Fridays, between the hours of 1:30 and 3:30 every Friday, we were always meeting at Central Bank of Nigeria, Lagos, to deliberate on issues about how to deal with not just the money market, the capital market, issues about foreign exchange, issues about monetary policy in Nigeria. They have been great supporters. They've given great advice that has helped in the way we are able to navigate the monetary policy and the Central Bank of Nigeria banking activity in Nigeria today. So when I say this, and I mean what I'm saying because it's not me alone, but these three people have worked with us. Again, please give them a round of applause. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, members of the press, it is my pleasure to welcome you to this second edition of the RT 200 Biennial Conference. As you are aware, our dear country has been confronted with many challenges exacerbated by growing internal and external factors. A significant part of these challenges has been the over-dependence on crude oil as a major source of foreign earnings for our economy, which has been largely distorted by the vagaries of oil price and production dynamics. To address some of these challenges, the Central Bank of Nigeria has been implementing several non-conventional, supportive, and complementary macroeconomic policy actions towards restoring our economy to its growth trajectory. One of the most noble recent ideas was the collaboration by the bank and the Bankers Committee to tackle the challenges of significant decline of foreign exchange flows into the country through the development of a market-based financing mechanism to boost non-oil sector capacity to attract foreign exchange flows into Nigeria. Consequently, the CBN, with the support of the Bankers Committee in February 2022, introduced the RT200 program, which means the Race to $200 billion program, which is aimed at raising $200 billion in foreign exchange earnings over the next 3 to 5 years, strictly from non-oil exports. Ladies and gentlemen, many developing nations have since identified export as a leading priority for their indigenous firms, and several countries have developed export-oriented trade strategies and extensive assistance programs to encourage export expansion in their countries. Economists like Kruger in 1978, Bagati in 1978 as well, Feder in 1982, have proved that export promotion, especially in developing nations, is a superior development strategy in accelerating productivity, improving foreign exchange earnings, and achieving overall growth in countries. Against this backdrop, several developing nations have been embarking on aggressive export promotion to increase their productivity, improve on their foreign exchange earnings, and increase their income accretion capacities. Nigeria cannot be an exception, particularly given the huge natural and material resources endowment she possesses. Therefore, it is not only appropriate but makes economic sense to embrace this policy thrust that is well anchored on sound economic policy and proven economic theory. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, at the launch of this initiative in February 2022, I promised that we shall be having this biennial conference to review our performance. The first conference on the biennial non-oil export summit was held in this hotel in June of this year with great enthusiasm from all stakeholders, and was aimed at improving non-oil export process and removing some of the bottlenecks in the export value chain. Today, we are gathered again for the second edition of the summit with the theme RT200 Non-Oil Export Program, the journey so far. This time, we'll look at what we have achieved since the first summit and examine the result of the collaborative efforts by all stakeholders in the export value chain and areas for further improvement and collaboration. But before I go into the achievements, let me thank all of you for the part you have played in making the program a successful one so far. Let me thank all the banks, CEOs, the Customs Service, the Nigerian Export Promotion Council, the Nigerian Port Authority, hard-working Nigerian exporters flying the Nigerian flag everywhere in the world for making this program a success. In terms of process and infrastructure for improving trade performance, we have rocketed some achievements in automation and digitization of our trade processes. For instance, as of today, SunCap and NAFDAC certificates and marine insurance certificates are automated and fully integrated with our trade monitoring system. In addition, we are working with quarantine service to integrate their permits and certificates into our system, and very soon NTA's e-call-up system will also be integrated. Some other enhancement measures have also been done with eNXP, including integration with SGD and the development of the PIA portal aimed at digitization of the process of issuing Clean Certificate of Inspection, CCIs, by PIAs, and ease of scheduling of inspection by exporters. All these are made possible because of the interest shown and the commitment made by all of us gathered in this room and beyond. Your Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I know that when we proposed a rebate system on every repatriated foreign exchange into the country used for own expenses or sold at the I&E window, some may have doubted our resolve to meet and sustain this obligation. However, events in the last 3 quarters have shown that when the Central Bank of Nigeria makes a commitment, it keeps that commitment to the last letter. So far, in 1982, and I'm talking about the first 3 quarters of 2022, a total of $4.987 billion have been repatriated into the country by non-oil exporters, higher than $4.190 billion repatriated in the whole of 2021. Of this sum, $1.966 billion qualified for the rebate program, but only $1.559 billion was sold at the I&E window or for own use. The CBN has also paid out about 81 billion naira in rebate to hardworking Nigerian exporters. You could see the $81 billion that were paid in 3 quarters. Our Honorable Minister of Trade and Industry, with due apologies. I know that the process of appropriation has been very difficult, and I heard the last time that something was paid under export grant was about 2 billion in a year. We would like to see and encourage and collaborate with your ministry to see how we can work together to the extent that while we are doing ours, whatever CBN needs to do to complement your ministry to ensure that we're able to encourage more people to conduct the export activities and earn rebates so as to encourage them to do more, we will be willing to work with you, sir. This $81 billion naira we have paid so far is a testament to the resolve of the CBN to ensure quick acceleration of the export value chain in the country. I know that there have been calls to make all exporters eligible or export products eligible for this rebate, and not just limiting it to finished and semi-finished products. While we see some justification for this call, one of the goals of the RT 200 program is to help quicken the process of industrialization and encourage exporters earn more from their export businesses. Economists have well documented positive relationship between export and industrialization. Export can transform the economic structure of countries from simple, slow-growing and low-value activities to more productive activities that enjoy greater margins driven by technology. We must help our exporters and our economy by adding value to what we produce and export. We are already receiving feedbacks from banks on the interest being shown by exporters to add value to the products they export in order to allow them benefit from this program. We are happy that this is happening, and we encourage more exporters to find ways to add value to their export products so that they can benefit not only from the scheme but get greater value from their exports. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I want to assure you all that the CBN is committed to strengthening and expanding foreign exchange supply into the market. You are all important in this national clarion call of expanding the supply of foreign exchange to our economy. For exporters flying the flag of Nigeria in the international market, the Bankers Committee and the CBN stands ready to partner with you to achieve your goals. You can benefit from the many financing programs introduced by the CBN through your bank to grow your businesses. Therefore, I call on not just those of you in this gathering this morning, but also those that may be listening to us to candidly interact and make constructive and innovative suggestions towards exploring the non-oil export sector as a more sustainable means of increasing financial flows into our economy and generating employment to support the growth of our country. At the last summit that we held in June, we did identify a couple of challenges and bottlenecks. Like I read earlier, we've seen the automation and improvement in technology being conducted either by SUNCAP or by the Nigerian Ports Authority or by the Shippers Council and the rest of them. But one major infrastructural challenge that we have and we're still facing still has to do with the congestion at our ports. And at the meeting in June, we talked about the need for us to collaborate with any state government, and that we are willing to indeed to collaborate with any state government to help develop port and road infrastructure that would help to accelerate and facilitate the ease of conducting export activities out of the country. But first, before we continue with the complaint, I think I am happy to say that sometime this year, I think that was after June, the president came to visit both the Aliko Dangote refinery that is still in the construction stage. The president came and launched the fertilizer plant, which is just one out of the 3 projects being set up out of that complex. The president also visited the Lekki Port, also on that day. These 2 projects cost almost $20 billion. Aliko Dangote refinery and petrochemical, I know, cost about $17 to $18 billion. The Lekki port cost almost between $1.5 to $1.8 billion. The Lekki port, I understand, is currently going through test run because all equipments are installed. By January, it will go into commercial activity where cargoes will begin to come in. For me, I see that as one of the achievements of not just the government of Lagos State, the federal government, and also our own collaboration from Central Bank of Nigeria to see to the development of infrastructure, industry, as well as infrastructure. I have often talked about the benefits of the Aliko Dangote refinery and petrochemicals. What we are trying to achieve with that is to improve local production of refined petroleum products, local production of fertilizer, and local production of polypropylene from Dangote refinery. I'm also aware that the Lekki port also has industries within that hub. It has an industry hub within that port complex. These are all meant to improve industrialization of our country. These are all meant to see to the fact that we reduce import of items that we normally would have imported. They begin is already exporting its fertilizer out of that area. And I'm aware that by the time the Dangote refinery and petrochemical plant effectively takes up by around the first to the second quarter of 2023, it will not only be producing refined petroleum products and petrochemicals for us, but also will be exporting these products. These are some of the benefits that we are achieving through deep thinking, critical thinking, and ensuring that we diversify the base of the Nigerian economy. But we say that infrastructure still needs to be done. The Lekki port is just one of them. But again, I'm told, and the Lagos State Governor has confirmed to me this morning, and I'm sure he will also amplify that that there is a need for us to build road infrastructure out of the Ekpe-Lekki area, out of Lagos. There is a need to develop road infrastructure from Ekpe that goes straight into Ondo and cut off some of the traffic or bypasses the traffic within Lagos. They don't have to come this way. They just need to, people import and they export. And and then they take them out of the country. Or you want to export, you come in easily through the Jebode-Ekpe axis. You don't have to go through Ikorodu and all this area to come through this place to get into that side. Come in straight, designated export area, where cargoes that are coming into the country, bringing goods, can also go out easily. Infrastructure, roads particularly, has been a bane of our problem and is part of the port congestion that we have been talking about over the last 4 to 5 years. Sometimes I feel ashamed when I hear that Nigerians want to conduct their export activity, but they cannot cut through the logistic and road problems that they have getting to Apapa or Tinkan Port to conduct their export activity. To a point where sometimes we hear that our exporters by road transport their export goods to neighboring countries to export their goods out of Nigeria. What happens is that those countries where they are exported out of take the credit that those goods were exported from those countries. Nigeria loses in taking those credits. That is why I'm saying that luckily the Lagos port is ready to go in January from Ekpe. We need to move very, very fast to develop the road infrastructure that takes goods out and also bring goods in so they can be exported with ease out of the country. That is what is needed to grow our country. That is what is needed to develop the industrialization of our country. And I'm happy that not just the Lagos State Governor is here, the Minister is here, our banks are here ready to support. On the road, Infrastructural has also set itself ready. I understand they're already discussing with the government of Lagos, Ogun and Ondo. They are also talking to the owners of the port to see to how Infrastructural can come in to help develop or fund the road infrastructure or the road out of Ekpe. That is what we need to do to develop our country. Those are the kind of infrastructure that our people deserve from us, government and institutions of government, to provide good livelihood for them so they can do business, earn revenues, in this case, do business, export, repatriate the export proceeds, and people who need to import also will receive those effects for them to conduct their import activity. That is how a nation grows. And we will continue through the instrumentality of our biennial summit at the CBN on the RT 200 to continue to push to ensure to see to the success of these goals or the achievement of these goals. We will not relent. In concluding, ladies and gentlemen, let me state that this is the time for all of us to work together to reposition our country on a growth trajectory by taking diversification of the economy seriously. There is no time like now to start working in synergy for the good of our nation. We must coordinate and collaborate on policies to improve the economic activities in the non-oil export sector. My hope is that at the end of this summit today, presenters and panelists and participants will bring global and regional perspectives to bear on our discussions in finding solutions to a more robust export growth in Nigeria, and also see to the growth and development of industrialization of our fatherland. I thank you all for your attention.
Central Bank Governor Gordon
Let's make the applause warmer.
just in his
Governor of the Central Bank
delivered
of Nigeria.
his address where he made emphasis on efforts of the Central Bank of Nigeria in implementing macroeconomic actions towards retaining Nigeria's growth trajectory.
One word I heard
In what we can describe as a scorecard of the performance of the RT200, the Central Bank Governor quickly brought to the mind of the people what the RT200 has been able to achieve in the last 3 quarters. He said a total of 4.9 billion naira has been repatriated through this RT200 scheme. He also made mention of successes recorded, whereby he said automation of process of exports goods has improved. Also, improvement in technology. He made a point to something that is germane, where he made a passionate appeal at addressing port congestion. He said this has hampered a lot of effort at exporting some of our commodities, where he appealed to stakeholders to ensure that this is addressed towards ensuring that non-oil exports in Nigeria get to where governments and relevant stakeholders expect it to go.
In February 2022, the Central Bank of Nigeria, in collaboration with the Bankers Committee, launched the Race to $200 billion Foreign Exchange Repatriation Program, tagged the RT200 FX Program. The program provides an opportunity to boost the country's earnings exclusively from non-oil exports over the next 3 to 5 years. The program runs on 5 key pillars. They include Value-Adding Exports Facility, Non-Oil Commodities Expansion Facility, Non-Oil Foreign Exchange Rebate Scheme, Dedicated Export Terminal Financing, and Biannual Non-Oil Export Summit.
I call on this gathering to candidly interact and make constructive and innovative suggestions towards exploring the non-oil export sector as a more sustainable means of increasing foreign exchange inflows into our economy and generating employment to spur growth in our country.
At the maiden edition of the Biannual Export Summit held in Lagos on June 16, 2022, the Governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria, Mr. Godwin Emefiele, stressed the need for greater diversification of the Nigerian economy.
We can no longer continue as a country to depend on revenue from crude oil, where we have no control over price and quantity. Before we found oil, Nigeria was exporting commodities. We found oil and we all went to bed. It is time for us to get jolted and get out of bed and begin to do the right things for the good of our country, so that Central Bank of Nigeria can find the foreign exchange. In fact, people do not need to come to Central Bank of Nigeria to ask for foreign exchange to import. The banks should be able to find foreign exchange from exporters to fund import needs of Nigerians. That is what we desire.
5 months after, stakeholders can look back to count milestones recorded under the program. Notable among the achievements of the program is the collaborative efforts by the Bankers Committee, Nexim Bank, the Nigeria Export Promotion Council, NEPC, and indigenous export firms. In 2022, a total of $4.987 billion has been repatriated into the country by non-oil exporters, higher than the $3.190 billion repatriated in 2021.
Obviously, with every new thing, you start gradually. In the second quarter, which was the first full quarter of the program, we realized over 600 million. And in the third quarter, ending in September, we are almost at $1 billion just for that quarter. So if you put it together, we are already pursuing $1.7 billion from the program.
On the non-oil export inflows we've received, you see urea is now number 1. We also see a lot of some of the cash crops we do export. We've brought in quite a lot of FX. And not only that, we're beginning to pay them rebates. We've paid rebates in excess of very close to 200 billion to over 174 firms. This is an incentive for them to be able to, quickly repatriate the proceeds so that we can have enough effects to be able to, address the requirements of other either manufacturers or students going to school.
In the first quarter, we have about $20 million flow into the rebate. By the second quarter, we have 622 million. By the third quarter, we have inflow of about 1.3 billion, of which 870 were transacted in the I&E window. So the program has done tremendously well, and we also have customers and producers wanting to go into value chain addition, and so that they can benefit from this program.
We observed since February that beyond those who are already in the export ecosystem and who obviously have started to repatriate more money than they were repatriating before, there's been a new enthusiasm, almost a new commitment by people who have real capacity, who were not in export industry before and are suddenly now moving into the export industry and investing a reasonable amount of money. And they are not looking to export raw commodities like we were doing before. What I've seen is a massive investment in processing so that what we are exporting extract far more value for the country than when we merely exported.
I think where we are with NXPs and documented transactions, and obviously you are basically giving priority to people who are adding value. They're processing beyond just the raw things, just not cocoa beans. Maybe you're doing some value add for all the non-oil exports. That kind of customer has invested, and you'll find that those are not the kind of customers that really abuse. But I can't say to you that in any environment, whether it's in Nigeria, whether it's in developed economies, there will be a certain amount of leakage. But I think by the way it's been structured, the leakage has been greatly reduced. And yeah, I think the fact that you are giving to people who have added some value to non-oil exports has helped curb the abuse that could have happened.
The performance so far is very encouraging. We've seen exports grow to the point of 2.6 billion by half year. And then if we analyze that, that will be 5.2 billion. And it's another straight line, so it's likely going to hit over 6 billion. That will be a 55% growth from last year versus the 36% growth from 2020 to 2021. And the other part of it is the rebate paid so far. 42 billion has been paid in rebates. And that means working again through by the end of year another to be like about 56 to 60. It could even be more because the processing is getting more advanced. When we first started, people are getting used to it. So you see it ramping up.
As more economic benefits are recorded through the program, its core objectives continue to improve access to finance for exports at single-digit interest rates, grow the country's gross domestic product, and attract new investments. In addition to this is the Export Rebate Scheme, an incentive that encourages exporters on value addition.
If you look at the turnaround time, hitherto you had people who were, food dragging, but with the incentive we've put in place, we've seen a lot of those inflows coming into the I&E window. We have a robust M&E framework in place to be able to just ensure that we have better insight into how things are going on there. But the incentive is there. We ask all the exporters who really want to bring in their efforts to take advantage of that product, and then get the rebate. But you can clearly see the effect of the rebate, and the numbers quarter on quarter have just significantly gone up.
The rebate is like a sweetener. Ever since the commencement of the rebate, we are seeing a lot more customers, exporters bringing in, repatriating. And what you see now is that they are looking through. We are even facing challenges where you see whenever rebate is paid, you see customers coming back to tell you, to challenge you and say, I didn't get rebate for my full export repatriation. So the rebate has reawakened the consciousness for exporters to bring in the flows into the market, which is helping the market.
At the heart of the program is the major shift from the heavy dependence on crude oil to a multi-product economy driven by export from agriculture, solid mineral, manufacturing, and services. Aside this, the benefits are boundless.
We're a huge populous country, we're over 210 million. We need to be able to provide jobs for our people. We have huge arable land that we can do a lot of all the cash crops, sesame seed, ginger, hibiscus. All these are opportunities. Yes, there's mechanization, but there are huge opportunities for jobs for our people.
The country earns foreign exchange either by borrowing or by earning it. So if we can earn by exporting what we produce, exporting more of what you produce and importing less of what you don't have, it will be tremendous for inflation, for cost of living, and for living standard of Nigerians.
What the central bank is saying is that exporters, intended exporters, please focus on non-oil products, all right, particularly that in which we can add value, so that at least from a valuation standpoint and the value that is brought into the country, we can continue to reap more. It makes Nigeria a lot more competitive. It basically reflects in the value of the currency. It definitely affects the quality of life and living of Nigerians, etc., etc., and therefore it creates a much stronger currency.
If you look at the spread of the non-oil exports item, the exportable items, there's an even spread across the country. If you are looking at the northern belt, you talk about gum arabic, shea butter, hibiscus, soya bean. Then when you come to the south too, you talk about cocoa, you talk about palm oil, you talk about cassava, you talk about cashew. So there's inclusiveness in terms of this endowment. So to that extent, there's no region of the country that will be left out of it.
Being a mono-product country, the benefits of diversifying our business cannot be overemphasized. It improves the government and the country's foreign exchange earnings. It helps in diversifying the economy, which we've always worked towards, and it insulates the economy from shocks arising from our mono economy, which we've been for such a long time. It improves the country's competitiveness in the global space in terms of the quality of products and services exported. Will also help to create employment, obviously, because with the value-added productions that are going on, there's a lot of employment in the factories, and there's a lot of employment in the primary production, which is the cropping.
The RT200 is aimed at diversifying the FX sources for the country. We need the FX sources to be improved so that importers will be able to have access to Forex to import goods that are required for the people, even raw materials, plant and machinery. And what happens that this increases the productive capacity of the country and increases employment and increases even tax coming to the government.
As we speak today, which is 3 years after this program started, the central bank has agreed to Nigerian Bank 150 billion naira, which we have extended to exporters in various forms. Some are to finance trade, others are to develop along the export value chain the capacity to process.
We presently export cashew nuts and raw cocoa beans. We started with 200 million naira. It was graduated to 2.5 billion naira last year. Our staff strength has grown both direct and indirect to about 120. Basically, from 2019 to date, we've generated about $35 million foreign exchange repatriated into Nigeria.
Earlier, when we started with the export of raw cashew nuts, but gradually, with the help of EDF funds, we were able to establish the manufacturing unit, and we are now processing the value-added product that is processed cashew. If I'm not wrong, in last 2 years, we have been able to generate $23 million till now.
We export lead ingots or lead bullions, and our export destination is Europe, primarily Spain. We have received a total of about 400 million from Exim in this current one. Before we accessed it, we were about 15 people in our one plot of land in Ibafo. Today we sit on 3 hectares and we have a total number of about 80 persons. At full capacity, we are about $1.5 million per month. Since we started accessing Exim loan last year, we must have generated in excess of $15 million.
We are exporting all type of aluminum alloy like ADC12, LM24. Right now we are doing only one time and this 2.5 billion naira. It helps a lot of help. Now after this we increase our production, we increase our export, and also we increase our
secondary aluminum because it's processed from scrap metal to scrap aluminum into various grades of aluminum alloy. Our primary export destination is in Southeast Asia, Japan, China, Thailand, and Indonesia. In our first year, when we took the first EDF, we did about 4 million USD. The second year, we did about 7 million USD, and now I'm sure by the end of this year, we should be in excess of 12 million. Between the first time we took the first EDF and now, we have done well over 300% in number of staff we have employed. So as we're speaking now, we have directly about 320 people working here. So we have other hundreds of people working indirectly.
Already, over 242 billion naira has been disbursed to 145 firms under the non-oil sector financing. As more of these get underway, the CBN and key stakeholders are optimistic that the export story of Nigeria will be rewritten. Indeed, there is hope that exports will contribute about 50% of the country's foreign reserve earnings in the next 5 years.
For me, the takeaway is the last word in that narration. Export will contribute 50% of our export earnings in the next 5 years. I was listening to those businessmen. We repatriated $35 million, $15 million. That's indeed light at the end of this tunnel. And it just tells me that Nigeria, as a matter of urgency, needs to rethink its development strategies by developing her non-oil sector. Your Excellency, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, our next speaker has done very well in Lagos. Over 308 roads, amazing work in healthcare. Infrastructure is wonderful. Human capital development, he has also ticked the box. A surveyor, management expert, administrator, and banker. He's here looking at second term with a very powerful binoculars. I don't know what he's saying. Please welcome here His Excellency the Governor of Lagos State, Mr. Babajide Olushola Sanwo-Olu.
Making sure that schools are even assisting students to pass exams. So if they were well,
thank you very much. The Minister for Trade and Investments, Your Excellency Otunbani Adebayo, the Central Bank Governor, who doesn't need a binoculars to do his own subsequent election. We're a very hardworking man at that. Mr. Godwin Emefiele, deputy governors that are here, thank you very much for supporting him. Chief executive of our various financial institutions, especially these three wise men that he has identified. I can confirm that all of them are doing great things with us in Lagos State. And the 3-4 wise men and women, by the way, have been supporting our own government, and I think they deserve a round of applause. Thank you very much. Captains of industry, Our main people here today, the real exporters, the drivers of our economy, distinguished guests, gentlemen of the press, ladies and gentlemen. I think in the order of the program, it's certainly not been fair because a lot has been said here this morning. And I certainly should not just stand in your space. I should just say a few words and step out so that the real conversation can start. But I think it's an honor, and a very immense one that I'm here again to witness, a promise kept, and met by an arm of government. We were here in June when the CBN, led by the Central Bank Governor himself, said the RT 200 has come to stay, and that for doubting Thomases was meant to be a biannual thing. And I'm sure a lot of people did not give both the CBN and a lot of us that are here any chance. That is easier said, that I'm sure they will invite us again next year. But this is November. We're not even in December yet, and we're having the second edition of this biannual conference. I think you deserve a round of applause. It's not often that, in government, they keep, their words, they say what they mean, and they do what they have said. And I think it's an honor that I stand here again to warmly also be part of this second edition of the RT 200 non-exports, right? And I think a lot has been said. And in particular, we've seen that the aim of this is providing opportunity for boosting production and mobilizing our abundant resources to create jobs. Jobs. As a public sector person, that is one word that I think is needed in this room. To increase our non-oil revenues. And I think, the last 15, 20 minutes of this very informative documentary has spoken to that. You've seen real men, you've seen real businesses talk about their growth trajectory, moving from $10 million to $15 million to $25 million, some moving from 2 to 8 to 10. And so these are stories that we can all see this morning that are real stories and they are life stories. And certainly to expand our foreign currency earning, because our country deserves, and we deserve a lot more. And I think everybody has said so. The final words there were that indeed in the next 5 years, if we can all agree in this room that we can project to be able to provide about 50% of our total foreign earning from non-export, I think as a country and as individuals and as businesses, we have done very, 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 very well. But I think the story is not lost, on us. We know that the world in itself is going through a lot of turmoil. There's been a lot of global disruptions. There's been a lot of challenges here and there. But I think we certainly are not living up, we're not living just to the excuses. People are belting up, and we're all chicken, the bull by the horn. And so for us in Lagos State, it's really about how well are we using our space to be able to provide the needed opportunity, the needed, infrastructure development, the needed requirements to make all of these our promises to make it well fed. And I think the point has been made. I think the Central Bank Governor had said it. We're not just, saying it, we're doing it. We're happy that within the first tenure of our government in the last three and a half years, we were able to start and complete the Lekki Deep Sea Port. This is a clear testimony of what the mind of the private sector working with a forward-looking public sector government can do. We signed, an export. We signed an export loan with them in 2019, and they did promise that in 2.5 years they will complete the port. Even with the 1 year of COVID, we were able to deliver on budget and on time. I'm happy to announce that the Lekki Deep Sea Port has been completed fully. We're just waiting to receive the first shipments, of vessels, that will start the commercial transaction. And Mr. President had assured us that in the month of December, that port must go commercial and must start, to work, in earnest. And so for us, it's not just about the port. I think the governor of CBN have also talked about it. What level of infrastructure do we need to provide for it? I'm glad to also mention that we've done the first phase of the 19-kilometer, 6 lanes, 6-lane highway. You are looking at me and I'm saying it, 6-lane highway. From a 2-lane run-down road, we've turned it to 6-lane highway, rigid pavement. We have completed the phase 1 of it. Meaning from Eleko Junction, you make a right turn and you go all the way to Epe and you can get on, because we've also done the express road to Ijebu-Ode. Ogun State have also done their own bit. And so you can hit the Shagamu-Benin express route from the Lekki port in less than 30 to 40 minutes if you take that whole axis. So infrastructure using the PPP model had started. If you need to come and use the port and you don't have to come into Lagos, you don't need to come into Lagos because the road has been done. You are coming from the east, you are coming from different parts of the west. You can actually access, the Lekki port from the Ijebu-Ode axis on the express road, and you get there, and you'll be able to do and conduct your business. And why are we doing that? We're doing that because we need to also deliberately as a government reduce the costs, of doing businesses. And we believe that, the Apapa port has done its own bit, has worked and has functioned well for the past 40 or 45 years, So we needed to also look at the western part of the Lagos coastline. And so I'm happy to also mention, and we did mention at our Betty Summit, that we have given approval for the Badagry deep sea port as well. The groundbreaking ceremony also will happen before the end of this year. We're waiting for Mr. President also, because they are also, very, very serious about it. And so you can see competition also happening, right? On the western part, we'll have the Badagry deep sea port. On the eastern side, we'll have the Lekki deep sea port. And of course, the Tinkan port is right in the middle of it. So choices are being created, opportunities are being created, and we do not have excuses again as exporters that we cannot accept or access our port. Even with the current situation that we have at the Tinkan port, you will agree with me that the traffic and the movement, the truck movement and the vehicular movement in the last 2 years has significantly improved upon. I get on a daily basis, I get the traffic situation at the Apapa port and the Apapa environment on a daily basis. I've gotten the one for today. I can show you on my phone what it looks like at 7 o'clock, at 8 o'clock this morning. This is how we want to be driven as a government. This is how we want to build partnership. This is how we want to build a sustainable and a resilient economy, so that you can sit back and do your business very, very well. It's only when we work together in that whole spectrum of partnership that we can truly develop the entire value chain of creating a resilient, economy. And I want to say that as a government, we'll stop at nothing to creating that enabling, environment. I want to commend, the CBN. I want to commend the management of the central bank. I want to commend, our bankers for also all of our export financial institutions, for creating, the space. I think the real show today are the importers or are the exporters who are in this room. Let us seize this opportunity. Let us take up the challenge. With the numbers that are being said now, I think I have a retirement job already. I just need to sit back and begin to think through how do we become, an exporter ourselves. And you can begin to see that we're also doing that as a government. We're completing the biggest rice mill in our country. We're not just putting money out there to import rice. I mean, we're working the entire value chain, right, with all of the rice growers and rice producers up north, and we're shipping them down, to Lagos. So producing the biggest rice mill, ensuring that we also can provide, a sustainable, means of living for our citizens is one of the various things, that we need to do. And so I see all of us as on that path at ensuring that we can indeed develop this economy. We can grow the non-oil exports potential that we have in our country. All of us just need to understand that we are all on the same side. We're probably just looking at different sides of the same coin. And once we begin to have a collaborative, conversations like this, then we're on the right track at ensuring that all that we require for our country to be resilient, to be sustainable, for us to be able to provide what we require, to take this country to the next level, it's available. And I believe in this room, people listening to me and watching me are part of the people that can make that happen. I want to thank you again for coming. I want to imagine that the conversations that will also happen here this morning will further deepen, all of these collaborative efforts. And remember that Lagos continues to remain home to you. We want to be, the first, FDI of choice, in our country, because this is Lagos. This is who we are. Thank you very much and welcome once again. Thank you.
Governor of Lagos State, Babajide Sanwo-Olu, just addressed the gathering, and the key point he raised while addressing the gathering was that with the government of Lagos State is paying more attention on development of the infrastructure to ease business activities around Lagos and its environment. He held the gathering that the first phase of 19 kilometer 6-lane highway from Shagamu to link the Lekki seaport is on. All these are done to ensure that non-oil exports is promoted in the country. He also said that we need to build a sustainable and resilient economy, and this can only be achieved through development of the non-oil sector. He promised stakeholders that as the government, they will give more attention to developing infrastructure to aid the success and promotion of non-oil export drive, not only in Lagos, but in Nigeria. He said Lagos being the commercial hub center of the country, everything will be done by the government to ensure that these things are achieved to promote the non-oil sector.
Deputy Governors, bank CEOs, exporters, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. My presence here today shows the importance that my ministry attaches to what is going on here. And my presence here today shows the fact that in response to the Governor of Central Bank's comments, we as a ministry are ready, willing, and able to collaborate with the Central Bank to assist exporters in their trade. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure to be at the second edition of the RT200 Non-Oil Export Summit. This export scheme, which is aimed at stimulating non-oil exports with its audacious target of $200 billion income, is exactly what we need at a time like this. I am delighted that the theme of this summit is to evaluate the journey so far and jointly devise measures to drive the growth of the non-oil sector. My address today will be on, and I quote, exploring the non-oil export as a new frontier for foreign exchange inflows, unquote. One of Nigeria's biggest developmental ambitions is the diversification of the country's economy and positioning Nigeria as a major international supply chain partner. It is currently a challenging time for supply chains around the world. Importers in the United States are under a lot of pressure because they are receiving reduced input from China. Europe is negatively affected by the Russian-Ukraine conflict. The world has not fully recovered from the economic challenges caused by the COVID-19 pandemic. Thus, Nigeria has an opportunity to fill a lot more of its global demand, and we cannot allow it to elude us. The pandemic highlighted the importance of having resilient alternatives when traditional supply chains are unable to serve off-taker needs. Nigeria must step up and become that supplier. It is our hope that this scheme, anchored by the Central Bank of Nigeria, will be a key driver of this goal. As we all know, exportation is also not just the preserve of large organizations, and I am delighted to see that this program is all-inclusive as it targets all stakeholders in the export business community. Micro, small, and medium enterprises, MSMEs, trade associations, and the organized private sector. One of the critical things we need to do is to ensure that practitioners in the non-oil space adhere to global best practice and their products are accepted without any rejections by the international markets. Awareness about the steps that need to be taken for this to be achieved must be shared with all stakeholders to ensure success is sustainable. To this end, we have commenced the implementation of the Nigerian National Quality Policy, which is aimed at putting in place the necessary regulatory framework, institutions, and physical infrastructure to ensure that Nigeria's products meet global standards. As you are also aware, Nigeria is a signatory to the African Continental Free Trade Agreement, and this means that there is an increased market access for products, and you can export to African countries at lower tariffs. I would also like to use this opportunity to mention that under the Nigerian Economic Sustainability Plan, the Export Expansion Facility Program was launched by the Nigerian Export Promotion Council, NEPC, to support the resilience of new and existing micro, small, and medium enterprises to respond to the shocks of the COVID-19 pandemic. This further enables them to retain and create more jobs, specifically for the youth and women businesses, through the following programs. The Youth Export Development Program. This program has trained about 20,000 youth participants in the area of non-oil export procedures and documentation in the 36 states and the Federal Capital Territory. This program helped develop new exporters from zero knowledge to the point of export readiness and helped to establish 100 cooperative societies from the trained participants with takeoff grants. Promoting women inclusiveness in non-oil exports. The implementation of this program has improved women's inclusiveness in non-oil exports by connecting them with the global markets through the NEPC ITC E-Trades partnership. This also included closing the efficiency gap in the certification, labeling, packaging, and branding of their products. The establishment of domestic export warehouses or warehouse aggregation centers to promote and ensure that quality certification, standardization, and appropriate packaging of products are well taken care of before exports. All these programs have ensured that we increase our foreign exchange earnings, whilst also creating more jobs in the non-oil sector and ensuring the diversification of our economy. Furthermore, the federal government operates an export expansion grant program, which supports and incentivizes exporters by giving back up to 15% of their annual export value. And this is done in form of issuance of a certificate, which when presented can be used to settle taxes, buy federal government bonds, and settle some credits. Also, I have some good news for exporters. In 2018, President Buhari and I think what's her name? Prime Minister May, Theresa May of the UK, signed a memorandum of agreement for the establishment of the UK-Nigeria Economic Development Forum. Yesterday, we held our 8th edition of that meeting, and which was the final meeting. And because of the successes that have been achieved as a result of the bilateral discussions that we've been having, it was decided that the Economic Development Forum should transition into an enhanced trade and investment partnership agreement. And not only that, as a result of the discussions we've been having, in August of this year, the UK launched its new Developing Countries Trading Scheme. And under that scheme, it will give preference to Nigerian goods into the UK. And given that 99% of the current goods exports amounting to £1.6 billion per year will now be eligible for duty-free and quota-free access into the UK. Ladies and gentlemen, I congratulate the Central Bank of Nigeria for this initiative as it further aids the socio-economic transformation of our nation. I thank you, and I wish all our exporters more luck as they continue with their work. Thank you very much.
We appreciate you, Honorable Minister. Thank you very much for coming here. So very quickly, while the Honorable Minister and His Excellency the Governor are still with us, we will constitute the panel and they will have the conversation. Yeah.
would like to respectfully invite the moderator of this panel, the Managing Director of Zenith Bank, Mr. Ebenezer Onyago. He will be moderating this panel. Please a round of applause for him. Thank you. And members of the panel, a very interesting panel at that will be exploring the non-oil export sector as the new frontier for foreign exchange inflows. I'd like to invite the MD of Fidelity Bank, a woman of steel, Mrs. Neka Onyali Ikpe, to take her seat at the panel. I'd also like to invite the representative of SMIDAN. He's the Director, Enterprise Development, Mr. Evans. He will be joining the panel as well. Please a round of applause for him. I would also like to invite the MD of Olam or his representative to please take their seat on the panel. Yeah. The MD Olam or the representative of Olam. And finally on this panel, we have the Managing Director of Nexim, Mr. Abubakar Ababello, who will be on the panel as well. Please a round of applause for them. Thank you. Right, so we'll now yield to the moderator, Mr. Ebenezer Onyago. Yes, sir.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I think the protocol has been very extensively established and time. We just move straight away. For me, the RT200 is a renaissance, it's a rebirth, a renewal. It's not a conversation that we just go.
It has been a worthwhile discourse on the second edition of RT 200 holding here in Lagos. That's the RT 200 non-oil exports. The journey so far, the Central Bank Governor, Gordon Emefiele, has informed the gathering that in the last 3 quarters, the summit has been able to repatriate over $4 billion, and it's those that have also contributed to the discourse have said the achievement and the numerous advantages that are in there in promoting the non-oil exports, that as the federal government is doing all within its reach to ensure that we diversify the economy, stakeholders and the private sector are keen into this policy to ensure that indeed the country grows in its non-oil export drive. The non-oil export drive, the RT 200, initiated by the Central Bank in collaboration with the Bankers Committee, is anchored on 5 pillars, including value-adding export facility, non-oil commodities expansion facility, non-oil FX rebate scheme, dedicated non-oil export terminal, biannual non-oil export summit. It has been a discourse that has centered on what Nigeria stands to benefit from promoting non-oil exports, and private individuals from the private sectors, also from the government, have said numerous advantages that are in ensuring that we promote the non-oil export for the good of the country. That is how far we can take it here at the second edition of the RT 200 non-oil exports from Lagos. On behalf of the outside broadcast crew, I'm Abolade Salami. We now return you to the studio for our scheduled program.
Information is power. Everyone wants power. So feel powerful with the NTA News mobile app, the one-stop information center. Real news at your fingertip. Be the first to report by uploading first-hand information on the U-Report link, and be the first to know by simply clicking on any of the links on the sidebar for headlines, domestic and foreign news, economy, security, politics, sports, and more. Stream live on your smartphone and tablets and stay connected. It's pretty easy. Simply download NTA News app from your Google Play Store and you're good to go. NTA News mobile app, your access to real-time information.
This is the moment we've been waiting. It's time to rise up, do it again.